And I was like, wow, that's how much more cash flow I can make in this property. And I was like, I want it.
So today we have special guest Tahnee Dela Calzada. She's a full-time wife and mom. She works as an engineer in the National Guard. She owns rental properties here in Hawaii and is currently buying commercial properties in the Kansas City market. Welcome to the show, sis.
Thanks, Tahnee, for having me.
Yeah, we've known each other for like a little while, and I've really seen, I think, your progression of brand new investors to where you are today. Like now you're a coach and you coach other people in investing, and really so inspired by your not just as investing, but you're a full-time mom and wife. And I think like it seems impossible to be able to juggle family and investing at the same time.
Oh yeah, it's constant chaos. My children, my husband, right? The house is always loud, always trying to get onto Zoom calls and keep silence in the house. So kind of do things like what the TikTok gurus would say, right? Don't give your kid the iPad. I'm like, well, I need to be on the Zoom. Here, son, you can have the iPad for 2 hours. So it's chaotic. My husband and I, Sean, right? We're just really trying to make things work and take the next step and, just keep moving forward.
I love that. We'll dive a little bit more into that later. But what were you doing before real estate investing, and how did you kind of get started into real estate investing?
Okay. So I work for the Hawaii Army National Guard full time. That's my W-2. My husband works at OCCC. He's a correction officer. So we were just out grinding in our W-2s, right? Working the overtime.
It's hard in Hawaii to just survive, right? It takes two full-time jobs just to afford a rent or a mortgage here in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Right?
So we bought our first primary residence out in Waianae.
Zero down on the VA loan?
Yeah. So we used the VA loan.
Great.
We were able to buy the house, but we weren't able to furnish the house, right?
When you first started, you mean, just because you could afford the mortgage or the down payment or the mortgage, but you couldn't afford the cost to buy furniture and stuff. I think a lot of people can relate to that when you're trying to live in Hawaii, right? Like costs and expenses are so high, you got to cut somewhere, right? So
exactly. So we bought our first primary residence. We had our bed in the living room watching TV, making ends meet. And I told my husband, I'm like, okay, every 3 years, we're going to buy another property. And he thought I was crazy. He was like, what? Why? Every 3 years? I'm like, because we need rental properties.
Yeah. So even from like when you first started in the very beginning, before you kind of got into real estate investing, you had this idea that you wanted rental properties.
Yeah. So being in Hawaii, my thought process was like, if I able to buy each child that I have, and that time I didn't have any kids, right? If I can buy a house for each child and then have it being paid off by the time that they're 30, then they'll get 100% cash flow. That was like my idea of leaving a legacy.
That's amazing. Kids. So your thought is like, let's say like you buy a house early on, after 30 years it's paid off from the renters, then like your kid will own it free and clear. They can either have it as a rental property or live in it for free, right?
Yeah. So I was like, hey, if I leave them, I have to leave my kids something. I'm going to leave them a house, right? In my head, I'm like, that's amazing.
Yeah, no, that would be amazing. I mean, I think any kid out there would love to have like, especially a house in Hawaii, right?
Yes.
And so did you get that from your parents, from reading a book? How did you discover that?
I think my great grandparents, they have like a large lot in Old Eva. And I think my grandpa, I don't know if he did permitting or if it's still permitted, but they just built a lot of like little shacks and kind of like rented it out here and there.
Kind of like your family's seen like some rental properties, and you've seen the power of real estate from your grandpa.
Yes.
Okay.
And so a lot of my growing up, a lot of our family members were kind of like, oh, who needs a place to stay? And that was kind of where we stayed for a little bit and then try to find their way. Oh, we need cheaper rent again and then go back.
No, that's awesome. I love it. So it's almost like your grandpa kind of started the legacy and then kind of like implanted this whole idea of rental properties into you. And then now like you took the idea of rental properties, maybe buying one every 3 years, but you're taking it to like a whole new level. Now you guys own rental properties. Now you're buying commercial buildings. And so we'll dive into that later, but I love that transition of just how family and like can leave such a big legacy by the decision that you make, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Somebody has to be the risk taker.
The one to start the whole process, right?
Yeah. So I owe it to myself. I owe it to my kids. Like, I want to be the one who goes out and makes the mistakes because I know that I'll be able to handle it.
I love that attitude. So how did you go from like that first property that you guys own to like where are you guys now as a like full-time real estate or kind of full-time job, but also full-time real estate investing at the same time?
Yeah, I feel like
right?
I'm just full-time mom, full-time working, full-time real estate, full-time everything. So after we bought our first property, we became accidental landlords.
Okay.
My husband was getting deployed. At that time, I was pregnant. So when he was away for training and getting ready to head out to Afghanistan, I was like, Mom, can I come back home? So I was able to go back home, and then we turned that first primary residence into our first rental.
Awesome. So you guys became like official landlords at that point in time.
Yes.
And then where was like the transition? How did you actually end up like getting into like the commercial or real estate investing on the out of state?
So I think like a lot of new investors, they're reading the books, right? So I read the Burr book.
From David Green.
Yes, David Green, the Burr book. And then I was kind of listening to some of the podcasts, seeing some things like on social media. And then I was like, all right, I need to do something about it, right? And if you read the Burr book, the numbers they present in the books like $20,000, $30,000.
So explain to us the Burr book. What is the Burr?
Yeah, so the Burr is a strategy that I use and some of my investors use in out-of-state investing. So Burr stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. Okay. So the idea is to buy the property that is undervalued, under what the market rate is. Purchase that, and then in your rehab, right, is adding value. So adding a bedroom, adding a bathroom, or just doing the cosmetic kind of flip, putting the lipstick on the pig, making it safe, livable for a family. And then renting, right? So renting it out to the family, getting income, and then refinancing. So with the refinance, you would pull most or all of your money out that you put into the acquisition and the rehab, and then repeating that process with the refinance money into the next property.
I love it. It's a real powerful strategy to obtain rental properties at scale, right? Like typically when you buy a rental property, you have to save for a down payment and can you buy one. Then you save for a down payment and you buy the next one, right? Which is probably the original strategy you had for like the primary residence.
Yeah. So like you said, buy the property. I was planning to live in it for 2 years, rent it out for 1 year, and then buy another property.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a powerful way to build wealth for you and your family. But if you want to kind of supercharge your growth and get to there faster, now the Burr strategy becomes really powerful where you can actually obtain rental properties without actually having to use your own money at the end of the day to kind of like obtain these things.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely. And the market that I chose to start buying rental properties was actually in the Midwest. In Missouri, specifically Kansas City.
Why did you choose Kansas City?
Yeah. So one of the things that I like is the price point. Right. So the price point, you can purchase homes from like 60 to 100K. And for me, that's a lot easier and more doable to get into versus Hawaii, where you're buying homes for almost $1 million.
800 to $1 million,
and then fixing it up, and then when you rent out a property in Hawaii, you're taking advantage of the appreciation and not the cash flow, right? So
I had the exact same start. When I first started, I invested outside in Indianapolis, which is very similar to Kansas City, buying houses for 50 to 60,000, which at the time was like, I thought like, is this even real? Because like Hawaii prices are like 800 to $1 million, right? And like, you can buy a house for $60,000. They just seem crazy, but this is like a great way to kind of get started where it's less risk. You're not putting in $800,000 to buy a house. They're putting in 60, and like, God forbid, like let's say like the worst case happens, right? You'll lose maybe like 20 or 30 grand. You're not going to lose like 200 or 300,000 like in like a Hawaii investment, right?
Oh yeah, so, definitely. So it was a lot, an easier reach for us to get into that market and then purchase our first property out there.
So you bought your first rental in Kansas City.
Yes.
And then do you still own that today?
No. So we bought a duplex. It was for 100K. So yes, a duplex for 100K.
Awesome.
And it already had renters in place. So I had cash flow
from day one.
And then we ended up selling that property kind of when the market went up with COVID. So we got I think we made about $30K, and I didn't flip the property. I didn't
just
do
no renovation,
no
nothing.
renovation.
Just bought it at
yep.
the right time, and then they went up in value, and then
And so I used that capital to get into a larger asset class.
Got it. And then the larger asset class is
my big commercial building that I bought after maybe 6 months into investing.
Okay, so like so when you say 6 months into investing, when would you say like your investing career started?
I would say truly committed to out-of-state investing April 2021.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you like read a book? What was like the catalyst that said like that's the beginning of your investing
So
career?
we invested, my husband and I, we invested into a mentorship.
Okay.
So we signed up under WNN Properties.
Okay.
And we found the Hawaii community, like local people who were doing what we wanted to do. They were purchasing properties. They've had an established team out there. They had the system and processes that I needed to get into investing a lot quicker than me building my own team.
Got it. And so I feel like there's like a good and bad mentorships, and like there's like so many out there. How do you know which one is a good one to join and which one is like let's say like not so good to join?
Yeah. So I think finding the mentorship that aligns first with what your real estate goals are. So in real estate, there's so many things, right? Fix and flip, wholesaling, wholetailing, buy and hold. There's like multifamily, commercial mentorship. So number one is finding the mentorship that aligns with your vision and goals.
Okay.
Right. So after finding WNN Properties, and
so what was WNN's like a vision, or what do they specialize in?
So WNN Properties is a mentorship and consulting firm helping investors buy and hold properties in the Midwest.
Okay, got it. So what was like kind of did you learn a lot from the mentorship? How did you transition or go through like that process?
So when I joined, I was really looking for somebody to keep me accountable. That was another thing, right? So WNN, we had accountability calls every week.
Every week.
Yeah. So I know I'm an adult, right? Yeah. And we make decisions every day, but we get lazy. We get, like even that's my goal. I would get lazy, right? I have kids. So I gave myself excuses instead of taking, accountability and extreme ownership.
It's so easy. I think one of the hardest challenges of being an investor is what's easy to do is also easy not to do, right? And so like it's easy to jump on a Zoom call, but it's also easy not to jump on a Zoom call. It's easy to analyze deals, but it's also easy not to analyze deals. And so it's always a struggle as an investor because like you have to do all this work that's involved, but it's also very easy for you just to not do it. So it's almost like having accountability calls or people in your life to kind of hold you accountable to like your goals actually helps you to like move the ball forward in a faster time frame, right?
Yeah. So I really needed another person to kick me in my butt when I was giving myself excuses.
I love that. And so like, do you think like the WNN membership really is good at holding you accountable?
Definitely. So there would be some weekends starting out as an investor, right? I was unfocused. I'd rather go to the beach and do a barbecue. And then when you go to the beach and barbecue in Hawaii, I have a couple of beers, and a couple of beers is a lot more beers. Then I'm too tired to do what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I kind of let those small excuses, right, get in the way. And then finally, hey, I paid money for this accountability. I paid money for a mentorship. So now it's taking the value out of the mentorship that you paid for.
So it's almost like having it being like a paid mentorship it actually makes you more motivated to take action because otherwise you're wasting your money, right?
Yeah. So a lot of things, like if it was free, I probably
like it's not as valuable, right?
It's not as valuable. It's free. I didn't pay money into it. If I do it or I don't do it, I didn't lose any monetary value.
It's weird how that works where like I heard somebody say this one time where they didn't want to give away like their program and their information for free because it was a disservice to me. And I feel like that's BS. You just want to make money. That's what my thought process. But now that like I'm on the other side of things and I see the value of like charging for things, I see that whenever I have to pay for something, whether it's information or mentorship, I just value it way differently. And it increases my action and not just like it's not just for the other person. Obviously they make some money too, but it also helps you as like the person who's paying for it to kind of like to better yourself, right?
Yeah, definitely. So even when things are like $100 or if a mentorship program is $15,000, something that my husband and I have been doing, everything that we go to, whether it's a small meetup and it's $25, we're like, okay, we're treating this like it's $10,000, right? So just going into everything, telling ourselves that this is going to be worth $10,000. It could be worth $100K if I raise $100K, but am I being intentional with that time? Am I being intentional with the mentorship? Am I being intentional with everything that we're doing? So we try to treat everything like
that. I mean, that's so genius. I mean, like, so when you go to like an event, either it's free or if it's like $20, like I'm treating this like I paid $10,000 for this. And then the way you listen, the way you take notes, the way that you engage with the speakers or the community is way different if you spend like $10,000 for like a mentorship versus if it's just $25, right?
Yeah, definitely. It puts you set your mindset up before you get into the space.
I think I'm going to try that actually. Yeah. It's like a little mental hack to kind of like make yourself more motivated or more engaged. That's super genius. So when you guys, like you joined the mentorship, how did you actually end up starting to buy commercial properties?
Yeah, so we went on WNN's KCMO trip.
Okay.
Right. So I think this is the first trip that.
So you guys are actually going to visit Kansas City from Hawaii. Like
from Hawaii, yeah. So
okay.
It kind of grew organically. Mm-hmm. So some of our mentees and advisors were actually just happened to be traveling through Kansas City, or added that stop onto vacations. Right. And so when they were there, they would go to the properties and take pictures like, oh, look at my property, look at my property. So the mentees were just going there to see the property that they already bought.
Got it.
And then the community was like, we should do a trip. So that's kind of how the first trip happened. And then we were walking both residential and commercial deals. So when I walked the commercial property, my thought process was like, wow, who's going to buy this? Right? Because it was 2.8 million. Very far from my 60 to 100K, right?
That's a big difference.
Like what I was getting into the
original go around. I want to buy $60,000 to $100,000 properties that cash flow really well. Here's a giant commercial $3 million building like that maybe in 10 years or one day, right? So
so I was just looking at the investors who are more seasoned, and I was like, wow, who's gonna buy this? Who's gonna buy this? And we went back, ran some numbers, and I was like, wow, that's how much more cash flow I can make in this property. And I was like, I want it. Well, actually, it was more like, I want it, right? A little slower. Because at that time, I had to raise over $550
in order to purchase this property.
In order to purchase. And remember, I just started. I just bought a duplex.
So this was like 6 months, basically. You're in the program for like 6 months. You're almost brand new.
Yes.
You've been reading books. You bought your first duplex, $60,000 and like or $100,000. And you're like, hey, like I'm starting to get the hang of this thing. And then like now this huge like, it's almost like a stretch goal. Like it seems like so far, but like you're like, you just raise your hand and said like, I can do this.
Yes, so. I can do it. And a big part of it was the community that I was in, right? Mentors who've already done it, right? They've already purchased commercial properties. I see them taking action, kind of borrowing their confidence and knowing that they're in my corner.
I love that. So you borrow their confidence. Like talk to me a little bit more about that.
So at that time, my mentor, he had a bunch of single family properties. He's already gotten a bunch of commercial properties under his belt, and he was taking action. I saw what he was doing and the results that he was creating. So I took what he was doing and I'm like, he can do it. I can do it. Right. Let's go take the next step.
I feel like there's such power in like seeing somebody else do it who's like alongside you that you know personally. Like, you know, so like sometimes when you see it on Instagram or on TikTok or something, it seems like they can do it, but like they're so far away. Like I can never reach that level. But it's when somebody like you talk to like face to face, you have a conversation or you have coffee with and you hang out with, you're like, it's crazy. Like this is just like a normal person. Like, you know, like people probably see you on Instagram or on the podcast. They're like, wow, Tahnee's so far away from me. Like she's buying these $3 million commercial properties. She cash flows. She's crazy. But then when you meet you in person, you're like, Tahnee's like a normal person that we can relate to. And just like it's like you and me, you know?
Yeah,
so
I'm the crazy mom at Target, at the Target bins trying to buy the $5 crayons or the $5 crayon books, right? I'm just like any other mom out there.
I mean, to me, that's so inspiring because you're a full-time mom, but you're also a full-time real estate investor. How do you balance that and like your family life with investing and a full-time job too, right?
So in the beginning, right, when I first started, it was a lot of early mornings, right? Like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, analyzing deals because analyzing my first 50 deals, it took me a while to get into that rhythm, right? Over analyzing, trying to figure out, like, am I doing this correctly? Am I even on the right path? So from analyzing properties, that would take me 30 minutes, right? Now
for each one, you mean?
For each one, right? So each property, 30, 45 minutes. And then now it's like,
2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Probably about this much, right? A lot more, I wouldn't say guessing, but because I have that confidence, I have that knowledge, I know what I'm looking for, I know what my ranges are, then I give myself that leniency on, it can be X amount or X amount, and kind of going, because we don't know until the deal is done.
And so I think it comes with like confidence and experience, where like the more you've done it, the more you kind of like, you already know what to expect. You already kind of know, like you can kind of like fudge some numbers because it's not the be all end all when you first analyze. It's like a funnel. Like you're just trying to weed out properties that are not good deals until you kind of, hey, they might have a chance. And then now they might have a chance. Let's deep dive into this like more and more, right? So like I think it's really powerful when like you see when you first start, it takes so long, and like people are like, I can never analyze like 100 deals a day, but now you're like, dude, 100 deals a day, I can do this in an hour, right?
Yeah, so I can just scroll through Zillow or Redfin and be like, okay, I'm gonna analyze these three, right? Because then I'm probably gonna analyze. I mean, I'm probably going to offer on one of those properties or all of those properties, because just by the price point and what it looks like, I have an idea of what the rehab is going to be like, what my ARV can be like. From
experience and analyzing so many deals, right?
So. Yeah, in the beginning, I was up early in the morning, right? 3, 4 in the morning. My kids are trying to be with me, right? But that's the only time that I can...
So talk to us about that schedule. So like you have, how many kids do you have?
We have 3.
3 kids, okay.
Our baby, Shine, she's in heaven. So there's 2. I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Okay. So you have 2 kids, and then like I'm assuming that they demand a lot of time, right? Because they're so young, they need attention, they need like taken care of.
Yeah.
And then like, you have a husband, right? He needs attention too.
He needs attention. He needs to be taken care of.
He's like your 3rd kid, right? So but how do you juggle like what does your schedule look like? You have kids, you have a full-time W-2 still, and you're trying to make time for real estate investing.
Yeah. So in the beginning, right, it was a lot of waking up at 3.
3 in the morning.
3 in the morning.
And what time do you go to sleep at night?
Probably closer to 11 because like my kids are up. But I
basically 4 hours of sleep every night in the beginning. Okay.
Yeah. So I would wake up early, analyze the deals, talk to my team in Kansas City. So most times they're about 5 hours, not counting the daylight savings. So they're already up and running, right? So it's like lunchtime, we're just waking up. So being up with your team is very beneficial, because if I'm ready to send emails at the end of the day, they're already sleeping.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Right. So I'm trying to get more work in.
Okay.
So up at 3, get to work around 6:30.
Okay. So like 3 to 5, like 2 hours in the morning, just investing time. And then you get ready and then get to work at 6:30.
And then finish work around 4-ish, right? Okay. So right around 4. Okay. Now we're rushing to pick up my son from school, trying to get him to his jiu-jitsu practice, trying to get him to his kumon. I have my little baby, so when she sees me at home, right, it's like, ah! And then in the afternoon, that's when we have our Zooms. Okay. Right. So when I talk about Zooms, that's like our coaching time, we're coaching other investors, or we're being coached, right? And then before you know it, it's dinner time, or dinner time is actually like during Zoom. Okay. Right?
So it's almost like you're multitasking because you have to, right? Like you're trying to eat and invest, like and like learn. Okay.
And then giving the kids a bath, right? And then next thing you know, it's like 9, even though I want my kids to be sleeping early. Like we're just trying to get them into bed, calm down. And then before you know it, it's 11.
Bedtime, wow.
Yeah, the day goes by really fast.
I mean, I find that amazing that, so I mean, like, it's basically you're making it happen. And like you're sacrificing sleep and then also probably some hobbies or like some like alone or me time in order to get in the coaching and like the deal analyzing and all like the team time to kind of reach your goals, right?
Yeah, definitely. So in the beginning, I would say the first year, everything was real estate. All we did was real estate. Eat,
sleep, and breathe real estate.
Yes.
No hobbies, no time for like parties on Friday nights or Saturday nights.
So after I kind of got out of going to the barbecues, right, hanging out, I was like, all right, this is taking up. This time is not refueling me, right? It's not giving me the purpose I need to hit my goals. So once kind of that was the click, right? Everything was real estate. And then now we're trying to find a little bit more balance. And when I mean balance, being more intentional with the time that I do have with my kids. So before it was like always on your phone, not on social media necessarily, right? But making deals happen, doing your emails, because you can do everything from your phone now. But it was becoming, oh, my son's at jujitsu. I'm on my phone. Oh, hey, let's watch TV. Let's watch a movie. But I'm on my phone. So I'm really not there. So now when I'm like, okay, son, let's go play a game. For that time, put my phone away and I'm just dedicating that time for him. So being intentional with your time. If you're doing real estate, then I'm just focusing on real estate. If I'm doing kid time, husband time, trying my best to be intentional.
Be present with that.
Be present and just putting the phone away.
I think it's a really good point. I always wonder, like, is it possible to like be present for like throughout the whole journey, or do you really have to focus in the beginning? I think whenever I've seen like really successful people, they've always kind of had like that year or like that 2 years of just like 100% focus on that thing, kind of like, because there's so much to learn, so much to do, right? And then once you kind of have like a little bit of breathing room, then you kind of spread onto, okay, now let's spend more time with my family, let's like do like the other things and add the balance after. But I feel like when you first start, you kind of have to kind of go gung-ho into whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, right?
All in, right? So that's what I did. And it's a learning. It's learning every day. Like, how can I be a better mom? How can I be a better wife? How can I be a better investor? How can I be a better mentor and coach? And then with real estate, being in the communities with the bigger fish, now I'm like, oh, I need to go do more things. Right?
You get inspired and motivated, right? When you see other guys are doing things.
So the next year is kind of, I'm already looking at it like, oh man, next year is kind of gonna be another gung-ho all-in year, right?
It's crazy. Like when you look at your life or like the past few years where you are today, would you have ever imagined you've gotten this far this fast?
No, definitely not. I think I would be on my third property, like just buying,
like
right?
Like a $60,000 like single family or something, right? So
my goal was one rental property a year. After I got into investing, one rental property a year.
Every 3 years or like that?
So the first was one property every 3 years. And then I surrounded myself with other investors, joined the mentorship. Then my goal was one rental property a year.
And what is your goal now?
So my goal next year is actually to get another commercial property, but we're also looking into buying businesses. So creating the generational wealth for my kids, my grandkids, creating multiple streams of income. So that now it's just like buying more assets, different asset classes.
And so like it's almost like the goalpost of the dreams keeps growing. Like, and part of it is because you're growing as an investor and as a person. So like you're probably a better mom, a better investor, a better wife than you were like, let's say 3 years ago, just because you've been putting yourself through the ringer. You've been putting in the hours and like being on the Zoom calls and putting in the work. So like now like Tahnee of 2023 is like, now your goals are like way bigger than 2021, right?
Yeah. So. And so for me, I try to tell myself, okay, if I knew what I knew now, what would I tell my previous self, right? And I'm dealing with it now. Like my goals are too small, right? My goals are too small. Stop thinking small. You should have outrageous goals, right? And so that's kind of going into 2024, right? Where everyone's going to start working on their goals, working on their vision. Like, all right, stop thinking small. Just put it out there. Right. So the universe can hear, my heart can hear it, my brain can hear it, and then it's not going to sound so crazy. Yeah.
It's kind of crazy where when you first put out the crazy goal or the crazy idea, it seems impossible and it seems crazy. But the more you tell it to yourself, the more you see it and the more maybe see other guys actually achieve it. Now it's just normal. And I think you guys done a crazy thing where you've just normalized buying commercial buildings. I think like you and like there's a few other guys who are in the same mentorship where we joined too. And I think like it's the whole idea of just buying commercial properties seems like such a big boy play. Like it seems like so out of reach from a normal person. But because you and all your friends are just buying commercial properties, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, whatever, it's almost like it's just, you normalize like doing that. So it's not even a scary goal for you. Like next year, like, you bought 2 already. You own like a university. You're buying next year. We'll just buy another, maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah. And so buying that, and then now my husband's on the journey with me. So you're talking about being a better wife and better mom. For us, it was really real estate that kind of got us together on the same page, right? Because you can do it alone. I was doing it alone for a while. He was more of a support role. And it was working out fine. It was working. And then now he kind of saw my progress and he was like, all right, I want to be in the same boat. So now he's in the same boat, paddling. He's in the right direction. Not in the right direction. In the same direction. It just happened to be the right direction. So now he's doing his thing too. He's getting into the residential, so he closed on. I
mean, I love it. I think like, so tell me about, how's your husband involved? What is he doing? What you guys have like a little side bet going on too, right?
Oh my, yes. So in the beginning of this year, his goal was to read a book.
Okay.
Right. And I told him, that was your goal last year. Can you please not have that as a goal?
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So I was like, just come back on the Zoom calls, come back to the community and just sit on the Zoom calls. You don't have to participate. You can have a blank camera, just sit on the Zoom calls. Right. But being in the space, you can't really sit there and be a fly on the wall. Right. It's
like positive peer pressure. Like, you can, just by being in the room and you're hearing these other guys who are doing these things, or like they're calling you out, it's almost like you have to take like positive action, right? So it's like when like you join a team or whatever, like you play sports, right? You're on a team. If you're just on the bench and doing nothing, like you're gonna feel like the odd man out. You're either gonna quit and leave, or you're gonna have to actually do and take action on it, right?
Yes, exactly. So I mean, he's an athlete, so he understands what it feels like. He doesn't know what it is to be on the bench, but now in the real estate, he's like, he was the guy on the bench. So he's like, okay, I'm going to do one property. Okay. And then within the group, they're like, is that the best you can do? And other, okay, 5, 7. And he's like, fine, 10. And so between us, I was like, okay, if you get 10 doors, then you get to buy whatever truck you want, right? So he's a local boy, right? He wants the big lifted truck that you can't park anywhere in Hawaii, right? So he's like, I want the GMC AT4, So I agreed, not thinking.
So if you bought 10 rental properties or 10 doors this year, then like he would get the truck of his choice.
He can get whatever truck he wanted, right? And so right now he's at 9 and he closes on number 10 next week.
Congratulations, you guys. That's so amazing. I mean, like from going from just wanting to read a book to like buying 10 properties in 1 year. I mean, like just a mindset shift to me. Like it's inspiring and amazing. Of course, it helps to have like the carrot, right? Like I think the carrot played a big role.
So I mean, now that he's hitting the 10th door, right? As an investor, his mindset has shifted because now that big truck that he wanted, right? It's $100K. So are you going to buy the $100K truck that depreciates and doesn't give you any return? Or are you going to go buy another property? Right. So now he's like, I got that truck. Right. I'm like, okay, do you want the truck? He's like, nope, we can continue driving. So we bought a little island beater. So we're riding around in a brand new 2003 Toyota Highlander.
But it's so like good because it aligns with your goals, right? And it's like originally the typical thing is, I want the fancy car, I want the big house, I want the comfort now, and I'm gonna sacrifice my family or like my investing thing later, right? So like you're gonna enjoy now, but you're gonna pay later. But if you just sacrifice now, like let's drive the beater longer, let's live like a house hack and like kind of take the sacrifice now. Now 2 or 3 or 5 years from now, you can easily afford the big truck. Your rental properties will pay for it, but it's like as long as you do like the hard work now, like you'll reap the benefits eventually later, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. The delayed gratification. For me, I don't like delayed gratification. I want things now, but real estate is kind of it helps you realize your long-term goals, right? That big vision.
No, I love it. And I think like it's such a big just lesson in life where if you can like handle like the pain or discomfort now, there's always something down the line that you're gonna get the rewards from, right? So
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, and also too, congrats. It's just a funny story of you guys, like this, the whole transition. I would love to have been like a fly in the wall to your conversations when you guys were like just talking and figuring out your goals together. It's so fun.
So now coming into 2024, so now he's going to be like, oh, I got my 10th door. I'm like, not more for me. I have to applaud him, right?
But kudos to him. Like your
awesome.
Your husband, he's an amazing guy. Like it's like honestly like just one of the most genuine and nice guys and great guys I know. And so like just super proud and also like I'm stoked for him. So
yeah, I'm stoked for him. And now that he's hearing other people tell him that he's an inspiration, right? Like, oh, I got into real estate because I saw that you were doing it. For him, it was like, wow, people are really watching. People are looking up to him.
Yeah. Right. So now he's got to up his game for next year, right?
Yeah, so he already asked me, he's like, so should I get a commercial property? Like, no, that's my lane. Go do what you do. Yeah, that's so funny. I think he wants to try and get a commercial property. So we'll see what he comes up with when we do our vision and goals.
Nice. So like talk us through like that first commercial property. How did you end up purchasing it? Like I remember, going back to that story, you had to raise, you said $500,000.
Yeah, a little over 500,000. And a big part of that was private money, but we also had our first rental property, right?
Okay.
So that property, we had tenants in place, and at that time the market was going up.
Okay.
Right?
So the perfect time to sell.
Time to sell. So when I already committed, I already submitted my LOI, the purchase contract for
letter of intent to buy this commercial property.
So letter of intent.
This giant commercial property had a university, like what else inside
so
there?
There's a university, there's a State Farmers insurance sales guy, and 3 medical tenants. So like home hospice, home health care.
So then you're trying to purchase this commercial property. You're trying to raise 500,000, but you also were trying to use some of like the funds from like your first primary that you guys are renting out.
Yep. So that property, we were planning to do a 1031 exchange, right? So
1031 exchange means that you can like sell the house, roll over the profit into another property and pay no taxes.
Yes, exactly. And so with that property, we had tenants in place. They were already on month to month. Then with my property managers, we issued them a notice of non-renewal. At that time, we went into the property to kind of evaluate what needs to be changed or updated, right? So it could be on the market. It was a total mess. So every door, there was holes in it, like almost all the drywall had to be replaced. All my brand new appliances, right? So the refrigerator, the microwave, the oven, none of it worked. We had a AC unit that they like pry barred it, and it was like bent out of shape. So all the water was leaking into the living room. So the living room had like a puddle. It was leaking into the walls, and it was infested with German roaches. Every door or cabinet you opened, it like scattered everywhere.
That's great.
So it was a lot of work. So from that time, we needed to turn the property.
How much time did you have to fix this up and sell it?
So for the commercial property, we had 60 days from when we went under contract to when we had to close. 60 days. So in that 60 days, I needed to rip out all the flooring, all the drywall, repaint inside, outside, new doors.
Get rid of all the roaches.
Get rid of all the roaches. And when you get rid of roaches, right, even if you do the what's it called?
The spray?
The spray or like the smoke that you lock up your whole house, right? The roaches don't die right away. Like it's a slow death, right? So by the time we got everything like turned, right? On the market, as we were having open houses, you'll still see the ones and twosies of roaches. I was like, oh my God. So that was fun and exciting. And
so you had to like basically like fix up the whole house, get rid of the roaches, everything, and then put it in the market and sell it within those 60 days.
Yeah. So that means putting it on the market, right? Having open houses, having
Getting into escrow, getting an offer, accepting the offer, and then like the new buyers have to get their lending, go to the inspections, and actually close.
And at that time, I think they had a 30-day close.
Okay.
But when we were getting closer, they needed an extension for 15 days. So it ended up being like a 45-day close.
Okay.
Right. So that's pretty much the
60 days right there. So.
And we turned that house in like less than 2 weeks.
Was it you guys doing the work yourselves?
It was myself, my husband, family members, friends. Like we were there at 1:00 in the morning.
Just getting
things done, right? Furnishing it ourselves. And because at that time we needed more capital. So we didn't have a lot of capital to put into a house that we were
to fix up and everything.
Fix it up. So it was just trying to balance.
Calling some favors.
Hey, can you go do it for a case of beer? Here's some plate lunch. Like we were racking up our credit cards, right? We did what we had to do. And it was very stressful.
But looking during the time, it must have been so stressful.
It was super stressful.
But then looking back, you got to laugh at it, right? It's like good memories. It's always like as long as you come out successful at the end, it's a good memory. If it came out successful, it was a little bad. Maybe it might have been like
scarred me a little bit, right? And that time, my son was maybe 2. I think he was 2, maybe.
Okay.
So we were doing a lot of late night things with him, right, at the house. He'd be sitting in the stroller. We're like trying to rehab so my son was in it with us.
I love it. Yeah. So then you guys were able to close and actually like purchase the commercial.
Yeah. So we closed on our property, and then now we have to wait, right? So they closed, recorded, but by the time the money gets to our 1031 intermediary, right? That's a few days.
Okay.
And then they have to wire it to close, right? So those extra days, like 3 or 4 days, it was super stressful because I'm just hoping the money drops into the right pot so I can drop it to the other pot. Right. And I'm like, oh my God.
But so you guys closed on this and bought your first commercial property and began the world of commercial real estate investing.
Yep. Then we became commercial real estate investors. Now we own it, right?
Okay, yeah.
Now we're just learning how to manage that type of property, managing commercial type tenants, the negotiating leases, right? So all the big boy, the big girl things that come with the commercial property, we're learning as we go. Yeah.
So you bought this one, you bought another one, you're planning to buy more in the future. You've actually become a coach now on this commercial side. Tell us about what it's like to be kind of transition from the student to like now being a teacher.
Yeah. So now the biggest thing for me is to continue being an active commercial investor. I don't want to say, oh, the properties that I did before, this is what I do. That's what I did. Because the market's changing, right? Everything is always changing. So you have to continuously educate yourself. So by being a coach, it also forces me, right, to be accountable. So I don't have that one-on-one accountability now, right? Because I'm a coach, I'm a seasoned investor. So what I do for myself is I help coach others, and that helps me be accountable.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like it's almost like when you teach somebody else, you learn it better yourself, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And it's also like when you teach somebody else, it also like has an inherent accountability for yourself because you have to hold the other person accountable, which in turn kind of is holding yourself accountable too, right?
So kind of like being a mom, right? Like you can't say, "Oh, do what I say, but don't do what I did," right? So now I have to continuously do what I'm preaching.
Which is amazing. So what I mean, like if somebody wants to like hire you as a coach or kind of be in the mentorship, like what are the next steps, or what would you suggest to someone like on that path?
For the commercial, if you're looking to get into the commercial mentorship, yes, it's exciting. Yep, it's cool. It's a nice story, and you can put it on your social media. But with high reward, there's high risk. So if you're not a very risk adverse person, you're very uncomfortable right now trying to raise $500K. I would say start maybe in the single family area, and then W&N Properties has residential mentorship as well.
Got it. So maybe speak to like one of the big, I think the highlights of your story is how you're able to be a full-time mom and an investor at the same time and full-time job. I think I still like blows my mind how you can juggle all those things together. What would you say to somebody who is also a mom or somebody who also has a full-time job? How do they get into like juggle like the time to invest when so much of their time is already accounted for?
So being a mom, having 2 little ones and a husband and the job, right? It's committing yourself, right? If you tell yourself you can do it, If you tell yourself you can't do it, either way, you're right. So make that commitment and have that vision. If you need that vision board, it sounds silly. Like that's kind of things that you do as little kids, right? You cut up the magazines and make your vision board.
Do you have a vision board at home?
Yes, I have a vision board, right? I mean, it's just my really big piece of land that I want. But I should put a margarita on there because I know I want to be drinking margaritas on the beach. But having that vision board, right? Being committed, you're always going to be busy.
Yeah.
You're never going to find the perfect time. You're not going to have this is when you should do real estate. And if you can do it when you're busy, you can definitely do it when you have a little bit more free time.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many times I think like, were you ever like in the car, you're just crying to yourself, like, how this is so hard. How can I accomplish this? Like, you know, there seems like so much pressure, right? Like being a mom, being a wife, full-time job, and then all these expectations on you. Do you ever struggle with like being able to accomplish these things? Yeah.
When I look back at it, there's a lot of moments where you doubt yourself, right? Why am I going to do this? And it's going to be hard, but it's even going to be harder to see other opportunities pass you by. All the chances that you didn't take, it's going to be harder to look back on that. Yeah. And the things that you wish for your kids, right? I don't want to be wishing for it. I'm working for it. So for me, my drive, my why, my kids, the big vision, right? It's stronger than those moments of self-doubt. So for a lot of moms out there who are juggling, who are struggling to make ends meet, you can do it. You've been doing it, right? But now let's live for our kids, right? Let's one up them so that they can look back and they can one up us. Like that's for me, my little competitive thing is I want to set the bar way up here so my kids can go up there, right? And my grandkids was going to strive a little bit higher. Yeah. So if I can be that person who sets that bar where we think it was impossible to get, then that means my kids can set the bar higher and be more successful.
You tell me a story off camera about like when you first just gave birth.
So talking about being committed, I just gave birth to my daughter and I just got home from the hospital and I was on the Zoom call the very next day. So
craziness. I mean, you have to be a little bit crazy at the same time too, you know, I feel, to kind of be able to accomplish some of the things that you've accomplished.
Yeah. So I'm like breastfeeding my baby, trying to hold in like everything, right? On the Zoom call, facilitating and asking the questions, challenging the other mentees in our group. But for me, if they can see that I'm making the sacrifices, right? I'm making it happen. Yeah. Then no matter what excuse they give me, I just push the baby.
You can't have a better excuse than that.
Yeah, you can make it. Yeah.
So for all you guys out there, all you girls out there who are making excuses for why you can't get to real estate, Tahnee just gave birth and she's on the Zoom call that very next day. So awesome.
So on the Zoom call, continuously raising money, still analyzing deals. Now just doing it on my baby's schedule now, but still making time for it to happen.
So maybe like a last piece of advice, somebody who's just starting out or who wants to kind of follow in your footsteps, what advice would you give that person?
So for me, a big part of my success now is finding my people, right? Okay. And by my people, I mean that community that's going to support you when you have your self-doubt, right? When the times get difficult and you get into those obstacles, being surrounded with growth-minded investors just like me, right? It really helps me take my next step. Because when you're surrounded by those people or that type of person, it's about taking the next action step. No one wants to hear your excuse.
The positive peer pressure, right?
Yeah, positive peer pressure.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you so much, Tahnee. It's been so much fun having you on. We're definitely going to have to check in with you on the next year and see if your husband hits his goals or not. What kind of truck he ends up buying.
So far, I owe him a truck. Maybe next year. Well, next year I told him is when you can have your lift and your rims. You only asked for the truck. You didn't ask for the extra bells and whistles.
Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
You can find me on Instagram at Shine Bright Real Estate. And I also host small and large networking events. So if you can look up Taro Patch Collective and meet me at the next meetup.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for having me. I'm Tim coming to the show.